Good morning, everyone, and welcome to BJ's Esoteric Musings. This morning, it is Tuesday, by the way. We've just finished up a 3-day weekend, most of us, here in the U.S. anyway. And I thought I would come on because one of my new subscribers, and thank you for those who have subscribed, was commenting about the fact that my thing about my video and the sound being totally wonky. And she said, well, another channel some of the other channels I watch, this has been going on too. And why do you suppose that is? And so I said, well, there's a number of factors, and gee, that might be a real interesting video topic to explore. What do you think? And she came back and said, yes, I think so. So that has inspired this video this morning. First, let me say you'll notice my background's a little different. I did a 90-degree turn. I'm still in the library, but I'm now in front of our fireplace. So that's what's going on. I'm still playing with not just the sound, but also lighting and what looks best on screen. So bear with me. My son, as I mentioned, he and his family came over on Sunday for a barbecue, and he's a tech guy. So he was giving me some tips on how to do intros, how to set up videos. So there's going to be more polish coming in on this channel. So bear with us and me as I get things going here, and hopefully more presentable for all of you. Anyway, the topic of electricity and its frequency, its current, right? And we know AC, DC currents. Well, the human body is very similar. We're basically a tissued battery of sorts. We know we're mostly water-based beings. We also know that we have an electrical system that's called the nervous system. And when I was in school and studying, my background is in physical therapy, and my first leg of that education was getting myself certified so I could work as a tech in the field and start getting my feet wet as I waited to get on board and decide if I wanted to expand my knowledge in that field, which I decided at some point to do, and I wanted to go back to school to get my physical therapist assistant degree, and I did do that. But while I was studying for my certification, we began to talk about the nervous system. Sorry, that's the coffee pot beeping if you heard that. In the nervous system of the body, and trust me, I'm not a medical genius, so don't hold my feet to the fire over this. This is mostly for discussion purposes only, so I'm not going to get way lost in the weeds. But we have the autonomic nervous system, which is what keeps us functional. The autonomic nervous system are the functionalities of breathing, of the pulses that go through the body, all of that networking. If you think about wiring a house, that's what the nervous system is. We know, if you've seen diagrams of the physical body, that it runs all through us, down into our limbs, through the core, up into our brain. The brain creates synaptic activity, which is that, if you've ever seen diagrams of that, it simply is taking a charge that's running on one track, finding that synaptic point that creates in the brain, and jumping that bridge, if you will, and on down the track it goes. And when there's a severance in that, that's when we see, depending where it is and how it's impacted, that can be stroke, that can, if it's spinal cord, there goes use of limbs potentially, or sometimes, total paralysis. But there is something called the sympathetic nervous system. We all engage that if we've ever had fight or flight. And as we studied that in class, I got very animated, and I couldn't wait till we took a break so I could buzz in my instructor's ear as to this epiphany that I had. And he was very polite, but he looked at me like I had 7 heads. But I said, "Oh my God, you've just explained how our soul networks with our body." And he looked at me, he goes, "How do you mean?" I said, "Well, we have a God spark, we have a soul within us, and that has to communicate with the physical body in some way. And the way you've described the parasympathetic nervous system, that makes totally sense to me. That is where, we get that sudden impulse, all our hair stands up and we go, uh-oh, we're put on alert. That's all the subtle workings within the body framework. And that's how soul works, right? That's how spirit works within our body. It gives us the nudgings, the idea, the indicators that if we will follow them, we can go, oh, it's pay attention or bug out, right? Pay attention, bug out, or put up your dukes if some people want to just fight it out. I'm not a physical being that way, so. And now that I'm much, much older, running is out. So I've always said, well, I guess I'd have to stand my ground and knock him down with my purse or something. And now I don't even carry a big purse. So hopefully I never have that encounter. But my whole point to this is that those electrical impulses run through the body. We pick up on them. And when someone passes from this world, that I don't know how directly it impacts as far as the mechanisms behind it, but I would say as their soul separates and they now are no longer in a physical body, the tendrils, again, this is musings, don't hold my feet to the fire, but just see if this kind of makes sense to you. The tendrils of that electrical energy are dissipating out, right? Leaving the physical realm to a great degree because there's no longer a physical vessel there to hold everything in place. So think about an arc when there's a break in a electrical outlet, for example. It either trips the breaker on the switch, if you have a breaker system to protect the surge on the plug, or it's going to blow something in the fuse box, right? Well, that is sort of what it feels like as the soul is finding its way in those first few days. It's staying close to the family, seeing how everyone's doing, maybe saying last goodbyes, and as it moves through the family. I know my family members talk a lot about dreams, visitations, all kinds of things when we lose a family member, because there's an awful lot of psychically gifted folks in my family, and so they pay attention to those things. But also what happens, and I don't think this is unique to our family because I hear others talk about it all the time, is that they can have breakdowns or interruptions in their appliances, in their small things go wonky. When my brother-in-law passed away, he was a musician. He had a home studio of sorts that he dealt with. Everything went nuts. My sister wanted to play one of the last tapes he had been recording on and laying down tracks and everything. She put that on to listen, and the whole thing was nothing but garble. And she couldn't figure it out because she had heard him working on it. She had heard the playbacks, so she knew it was a functioning tape. But for some reason, it was coming through all garbled and sketchy, right? His stereo system, well, their stereo system, which he listened to nightly, it crapped out. It just didn't function. She had to get it replaced. Pretty much, I think she replaced 5 or 6 items of electronics after he passed. It just goes wonky. It can't handle, I think because spirit's on the other side, it's not being conducted through a vessel, which helps be a buffer of sorts or a breaker on the system. All of a sudden it's pure energy again, and boom, bada bing, you've got stuff sparking off in every direction. But it's also how soul communicates with us after the fact. Because my brother-in-law loved music the way he did, the day of his viewing, I was running around trying to get errands done for my sister and things that were going to be needed for that evening. And practically everywhere I went, a song would come on the radio that was something that he loved. He used to do a lot of cover. He played in a lot of local bands, and he did a lot of cover for the Eagles, for example. And I was hearing Eagles right, left, and center. In the 70s, he had opportunity to go down to LA to potentially pick up a recording contract. But his band had fallen apart at that point. And so because he was so multi-talented, he laid down all the tracks for a song that he had written and had been performing all around the clubs in Wyoming and Utah and all of that for quite a long time. And he played all the musical instruments. He did all the background vocals. He did the lead. He did it all. He took this demo tape and sent it off. I believe it was Columbia Records at the time. And they were very interested. They said, "Ooh, we think you got something here. Could you and your band come down and let us hear you in the studio?" He told them, sure, of course, but he didn't have a band. And he was too embarrassed at that point to tell them that he was between bands and he had done all the instrumentation, everything on that tape. Well, he goes down, he pulled some of his buddies together. You know, they were this, that, and the other thing. They weren't really a tight band. It was like, studio, pull a bunch of people together. And of course it didn't sound right. And he was so disappointed that he left the tape there. And if any of you know the music of the Doobie Brothers, you're going to remember one of their early hits that was, listen to the music. Whoa, whoa, listen to the music. That one, that was my brother-in-law's song that he left in that studio. Well, they liked the song. They had this young band they wanted to do something with. They thought they had potential. They had a very good following throughout the Bay Area. And they gave him that song. And my brother-in-law was furious. He hated the Doobie Brothers because of that. And I would tell him, it's not their fault. You left that behind. You didn't stand up for yourself. And you've got to accept the consequences of what came down line after that fact. That's what we all have to do. So much easier to point fingers and blame someone else. But that doesn't get to the core of what's going on. But that also, I digress. Squirrel moments, I have a lot, if you've figured that out by now. But the thing is that's how he breathed, lived, functioned, was through music and all the fun electrical stuff that went with that. And so when he left, all of that kind of blew out, and my sister either replaced it or just didn't bother with it because it was things that she wouldn't be using herself, and so she didn't want to put the money into it. But almost without exception, when one of our family members has passed, we've had appliances or whatever that have had to be replaced. And ironically, oftentimes it's directly related to the member that's just passed. But if we do that in just our soul state, we still have the ability, because we know we're sensing creatures. We pick up things from people. Someone walks in the room and we go, and immediately our body senses something from them, good, bad, or otherwise. I think we've all had that experience. Well, right now, we have been in a huge energy roller coaster of surging periodically since really a bit before the very first eclipse came about in, what was it, October? And then we've had several since. That's all been part of this frequency shifting, this uploading, this transmuting here on the planet. And people that are very sensitive can project that intensity. And that's why so many on the channels are being impacted right now, either by the solar flares, either by these energy surges that we're all still trying to integrate and figure out how to work within those parameters, those new parameters. And so when, in the Bible, where it says where two or more are gathered, yeah, that is also a thing, because you're building energies, right? More comes in, more energy output capacity there can be. So as people are collaborating on their channels, they're high energy folks, and they're putting that out there, and they start getting glitches in their stuff because it's their own frequency as well as the external frequencies are creating a perfect storm for all these glitches to occur. And yeah, it's frustrating. It just is. So that is part of it. Also, as the conversation gets more intense and vibrant, again, that sparks off energies. If any of you are familiar with Hogarth, the Vedic astrologer, he has this stuff happen a lot because he's a high energy frequency being. I got a reading from him last fall, and oh my gosh, we were having so many glitches. We were getting so excited in our conversation that both of our computers were going wonky like crazy, and we'd have to calm down and contain ourselves. But yes, I think that's a lot of what's happening. That's my Reader's Digest version of frequency. Of course, like anything else, there's a lot more depth to it, but that's just a very cursory explanation. I do want to go ahead and keep that. We're at 1818 just as I glance down. I'm not going to do a card. Well, I'll do one. I happen to pull out my my Gateway to Light activation by Kyle Gray. Hello. Here we go. There. So I'm still trying to figure out how I can show cards. Like I say, I don't use the laptop camera for this. It's an external camera, and that's part of my issue, I'm afraid. And I'm not savvy enough to know if I can switch back and forth between cameras to activate this, because I think some people just drop the camera down on their laptop. They kind of half close it so that you can see things that way. So yes, work in process here. We're getting there. Okay, I can see this one. Are you the one? Is that the one calling to me? Oh, well, yeah, must be, because it absolutely goes with what we're kind of talking about. It's the karmic board clearing, energetic clearing. Rewrite your story, live your truth. Oh, and I'm sorry for the glare on that. Let's hold her this way, maybe that helps. Yeah, there you go. Cards never lie, it's amazing. I'm going to come back pretty quickly because there's another topic I wanted to tackle, which is joy. And joy is one of my life ideals, has been since the early 90s. I've always been about joy, but after 10 years of a hard marriage in my first marriage, I kind of had lost all that. So I want to talk about that and how we find our way back to joy and the beauty that joy brings to us. So until that next drop, I wish you all a fantastic Tuesday. Again, do the YouTubey things, the like, subscribe, and share. And please comment, even if it's just an emoji. But just like spurring this discussion this morning, this came from a viewer. And I appreciate that so much because I want to develop a dialogue, a back and forth, where we can do this. Once we get build a big enough community here on this channel, we can start doing lives and discussing back and forth, and hopefully get into some really exciting and meaningful and instructional dialogues. So, again, this is for entertainment purposes only. Please do all the YouTubey things, and I'll be back real soon. Until then, I just want to tell you goodbye, and you have a fantastic day.